Hello and welcome back to the Helioscope YouTube channel. Today I am with Nick Dragotta, Jason Aaron, and Alexandre Tefenkgi. Is that how you pronounce it, Alex?
It's Tefenkgi.
Tefenkgi.
Yes.
Excellent. We are all people who work on Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. It's a post-apocalyptic love story written by Jason Aaron with Nick, Alexander, and me as lead artists on three separate arcs. But first off, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves and share what you are most known for and which arc you drew. Jason, let's start with you since you're the writer.
Hey, I'm Jason Aaron. I am most known for probably stuff I've done at Marvel over the years. I wrote a bunch of Thor, and now I'm about to write Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And yeah, I'm the writer of all three arcs of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World.
Yeah, and I also want to add that I think for creator-owned series, you're most known for Scalped and Southern Bastards, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Scalped was kind of my first big book at Vertigo back in the day, and Southern Bastards was my first image book.
Alexander, let's go with you next since you illustrated arc one.
Okay, so hi guys, I'm Alexandre Tefenkgi. I took care of the first arc of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. Most known for Outpost Zero, that was my first comics in the US, and then The Good Asian.
Delightful. I love your style, by the way. This is the first time Alex and I are chatting, and yeah, I've just loved all of your art throughout this arc and everything I've seen. You have this
And
like, yeah, I love, there's like a sense of minimalism with your stuff, even though I know it's not like easy or minimalist. You make your work look easy. Nick, let's go with you next.
My name is Nick Dragotta. I'm probably best known for East to West at Image, along with my co-creator Jonathan Hickman. Yeah, that's it, I guess.
Nice. And you drew arc three.
I drew Arc 3. I have them in their elder years. So I'd like to think of them around, 60 and above. I don't know the exact years, but they're older. Yeah.
Nice. And I am Leila del Duca, and I drew arc two of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, where our characters, I always imagine them in their 20s, freshly in love, uh, ready for a lot of heartache. But I'm most known for my creator-owned work on Shudder and Sleepless, and I wrote Afar over at Image Comics, and I've also worked on DC stuff like Wonder Girl and Wonder Woman. Yeah, that's me. So let's start with the first question, which I've totally already forgotten. There we are. Okay, cool. Since people may not have read the series at all, Jason, will you give us the elevator pitch of this series?
Yeah, it's maybe kind of hard to do the simple elevator pitch of this series, right? I mean, I think what should be obvious just from the fact we're having a Zoom with three different artists who worked on the book. It's really a love story at the end of time. It's the sort of the world's last love story, so it's post-apocalyptic future, where two characters meet as kids and go on an adventure together across the wasteland and start to fall for each other along the way. And right from the get-go in those first issues, that are drawn by Alex, we jump ahead and get a tease of their future as drawn by Nick, and see that maybe things are not gonna go so rosy for them over the years. And then so the second arc, we with Leila, we dive into them as adults and see kind of, they go from being kids in love to adults in love, and trying to kind of rebuild society from the ruins of the old and create this paradise for other people like them. And it starts to go wrong. And then from there, Nick does the last arc that is, again, them as old people, where they've sort of gone their separate ways and they have to come back together to try and save the world. So in essence, I guess it's a story of love and separation and how you move on from ruin, I think was the way I looked at it.
And then Alexander, first artist, probably asked to work on this series. What attracted you to this story?
I always wanted to draw comics about a love story. And when I got the script, I thought that it was a good, beautiful coincidence, and I wanted to have the opportunity to one work with Jason and to draw a love story. So it was perfect for me.
Nick, what attracted you to this story?
Jason, first and foremost, and before I even knew that you guys were attached. And then Alex, I'm a big fan of, just for the same reason you cited, Leila. Like, he's got all my favorite artists, Toth, and the simplicity, and such a good storyteller. And then when I found out you were attached, I was like, yeah, this is going to be rad. But yeah, Jason, I love Jason's scripts. I think he writes some of the hardest comics with the most heart. And yeah, I just wanted to basically work with Jason first and foremost. So yeah.
Delightful. Yeah, I think the thing that attracted me most to this series when Jason asked me to work on it was the fact that it was 3 different periods of time illustrated by 3 amazing artists. I didn't know you were going to be part of the team yet, Nick, also, but I was like jazzed by Alexandre's work and I loved Alexandre's character designs. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to take this and make it into my own style. Like, this is a cool creative opportunity. And then yeah, same, was like really thrilled when Nick came on board as well. But yeah, the collaborative creativity I think was the coolest aspect of this series. But then also I do like working in the romance genre. That's really fun. Let's go around the room and answer what's the biggest challenge of working on this comic. And Jason, do you want to go first again?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to me, the whole thing was a challenge, and continued to be a challenge in different ways, right? Like the challenges of the arc I wrote for Alex were very different than what I had to write for Leila, which was very, very different than what I wrote for Nick, and then also kind of weaving all those together. So, I mean, some of it, it came from, um, for me, like a lot of personal experience of getting divorced in the midst of a global pandemic, and even though this was a story that had been in my head in one form or another for many years, it changed a lot over the course of those years. At first I thought, well, it's the story of these 2 kids who meet and fall in love, and it was very much kind of a Road Warrior meets a Miyazaki. And then it changed, and I thought, well, no, maybe they're old people when they meet and fall in love. And then I was like, well, maybe they're kids and then they're old people. And I think I've been fascinated. I think you see in a lot of my work, how I'm fascinated by exploring people's lives in different chapters. And then I realized, no, this is a love story, and love stories have different arcs, have distinct arcs, right? Like you look at the story of a relationship, of a marriage, or whatever. Like there's different, very different stories along the way. It's not just the first act of that, right? So I wanted to do something that told that entire story, and I really liked the idea of using different art teams for each one of those, just to emphasize like these are the same people, but also very different people, and that they're at very different points in their life, and to get to that point, where even in the stuff that Leila does, it turns into this horror story, and where they don't even recognize each other anymore. So but I think to me that was all challenging, because I've never written anything like this, never written anything quite this personal, and never written anything that jumped around to so many different genres, I think, within one story. And I don't think I've ever read anything quite like this either. So I felt like we were all kind of walking into uncharted territory together. So, I mean, for my part, I felt like I had the confidence to do that, in part because of Sierra Hahn, who was the editor at Vertigo, or at Boom, that I started working with when we first put this together. And then Daphne Pleben took over from her. So I think that Sierra I've known for a long, long time, and she was able to help guide me through figuring this story out. And then y'all, like, being able to come on board and do such an amazing job on these same characters, but on each one of you able to make those characters your own in very distinct parts of this story. So I think that also y'all helped kind of pull me through those challenges.
Alex, what was the biggest challenge for you on this series?
Biggest challenge for me was to translate the authenticity of the script through the characters, because as I started the story, my job is to make it genuine, to make the readers also fall in love with the characters and to care about them as they care about each other throughout the story. And I wanted to reach the sweet spot between acting and authenticity to make it feel real, and also give that kind of innocence that they are in when they meet, because they're young. So it was a challenge, and it was exciting, but it demanded a lot of me. Yes.
Well, I would say that you completely succeeded. You blew it out of the water. Like, I was sold and totally in love with these characters. I don't know, I just think you really nailed it. Nick, what was the most challenging aspect of your part in this?
You know, to be honest, it was kind of easy to draw. Like, it drew itself, and I think that's because you guys had laid that track previously with what the world looked like, who these characters were. And you know, I'd drawn older badasses, a lot of them in East to West, so I kind of didn't have to figure out how to draw old people. And like, Jason's scripts are butter. Like, I remember points of being like, I'm gonna ratchet up the drama and have Mezzy fall to his knees. Then I turned the page in the script, and first panel, Mezzy falls to his knees. You know, so it's like Jason was always kind of one step ahead, and I just learned to be like, just draw exactly what he's asking. Like, don't try and ratchet it up. In fact, like, maybe pull it back and have the reader kind of maybe inject themselves into it. So not overacting it. Might have been the harder part, like knowing when to pull back, because it was my arc is a lot of arguing, a lot of like ripping each other's emotional guts out. So it was just a blast to draw. Maybe technically the hard stuff was like the end of the world, the apocalypse. So Jason would have tornadoes on top of lightning, on top of earthquakes, on top of lava coming up. You know, maybe just trying to get that all through the Rico of what I'm trying to say here. So like technical stuff like that. But no, it was such a blast. It was really fun. So
That's awesome. I can totally second what you're saying about I feel like Jason's scripts are like smooth and I don't know. I also had to find myself like, don't overact these things. Like, it's not that kind of story. Yeah, I would say the most challenging part of my script was that there were a ton of establishing scenes with a lot of crowds. And that is always really like time consuming. And like yeah, it was just hard to come up and still be creative and also in a timely manner come up with a lot of different costumes and environments. Uh, yeah, and I actually had Kat Ferris join me as a background artist on, I think it was issue 7, which saved me a lot of time, and I'm really grateful that Boom was cool with me doing that and that Kat had time to help me out with that. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge. The rest of it, yeah, it was just like I had a blast drawing these characters. I was trying out a new digital brush that I think really helped the feel of my line work and make this the 20 something like characters like I think it helped with the mood, and so I really like that aspect. Oh yeah, all right, this is probably a question more for the artists, but also Jason, I know you sent us some visual reference, but what kind of visual inspiration were we drawing from on this series? Nick, do you want to go first this time?
I mean, I would just say what you and Alex had done. Like, I feel like you guys set the tone, and the world, and you guys have made really smart design choices. Like, it wasn't too much labor, you know, backgrounds weren't the end all be all. It was just more about character and storytelling. So it was, I mean, I had the trades right next to me as I was drawing it and just constantly referring back. And yeah, you guys set the tone. So, you know, I copied your rats, I copied Alex's, you know, Maceo gear. And I mean, I looked at your work quite a bit. Yeah, like that's it's interesting. Like you started this point earlier, the three of us artists collectively, I think we made, for me, and this probably doesn't go for Alex, but it made the load much easier. Like I didn't have to worry about the world building. It was kind of built in, you know, and I just plugged the Elder Age characters into it.
Nice. Alex, what about you?
I think I went to see what was done in Mad Max. I think I made a folder on Pinterest about backgrounds, props, clothes, and just looking on the internet. The thing is, the most challenging part for me about the design was the sea of garbage. The tower, and inside the tower was fun and something that I could visually just see right away, but the sea of garbage with the buildings poking out, that was different. I had really put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and thanks for putting in all the hard work figuring that out because I definitely referenced your pages to help me draw more garbage. Because I was like, "This garbage is looking too similar to this garbage pile in my own work," and then I would just look at your art and be like, "Oh, he was adding something that looks like a TV here," and I don't know, it just really helped me out a lot, honestly. Cool, so for my arc, I yeah, drew on Alex's already established visuals, which was great. And then Jason, what's the name of that building in St. Louis or Louis? Wait,
It's the City Museum
yeah,
in
you
St.
sent me
Louis.
yeah, you sent me reference for that, and it's such a cool building. And I was drawing on visuals for that for the interiors of Golganuza quite a bit. Yeah, I think I was just looking at a couple different high schools for the exterior of the high school building, yeah. But yeah, that was pretty much I kind of feel like I was lazy about looking at reference, but I hope yeah, I don't know, I feel like it worked out okay. All right,
Well,
Jason.
you must have had other stuff in mind. I mean, the City Museum is just this craziest indoor playground you could imagine, where everything you see you can climb on or through, and it's just insane. It's hard to describe it. You kind of just have to go and explore it. There's indoor parts, there's outdoor parts with just sculptures of rebar that you climb on, and there's a plane there, and there's like an actual old fire truck and a school bus on the roof. It's just mad, but it looks like just an explosion of imagination to me. So that was what I had in mind for Golganuza. But Layla, I mean, you also drew a lot more than just that too, because your arc turns into this weird, surreal horror story at some point. So it goes from, you know, cute people living in this paradise at the end of the time to, everybody turning into monsters in some sense. So like, what did you have horror touchstones that you referred to for any of that stuff?
Yeah, good point. I had almost forgotten about that. I think I remember looking at Rob Liefeld guns to to draw.
That was not what I was expecting you to say.
I know. But anyway, yeah, the gun that Maceo or Maceo has, that was kind of a Rob Liefeld inspired one. I think the winter coats were kind of the thing inspired. I also wanted it to seem like it was kind of a more wintry cold atmosphere at that time because the energy between the two of them was so cold and foreign to each other that I wanted it to kind of just evoke this cold wall. And then yeah, like for the body horror creature monster stuff, I winged it. And that was really fun. I love winging it and when it turns out like this. But yeah, usually I don't like body horror stuff, but the two portraits I drew of the two characters as they saw each other at that time were really, really fun. Like I loved that. And those are probably two of my favorite pages from my part in the series.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too. I think you killed it on those, and that's such a important moment, you know, in the story too, of like literally when they look and see each other as monsters. So I mean, you know, in terms of like other visual references, for me with the first arc, you know, talking with Alex, I was always thinking Wes Anderson, right? Like to me, that was what if Wes Anderson directed Road Warrior? And then we get there's a little bit of Moonrise Kingdom and these two kids meeting, falling in love, and you get the, you know, our weird post-apocalyptic version of some Boy Scouts. So I kind of always knew like we'd start Wes Anderson, we go to this you know, weird sort of paradise, polyamorous paradise that turns into a Dario Argento horror story. And then that last arc is going to be much more stark and brutal and action driven. Um, so yeah, that was kind of always what I had in mind, and some of that I kind of figured out, you know, as we all went along together.
I could ask the question, what was your favorite thing to draw in your respective arc?
Yeah, my favorite things to draw really was the interactions between Mehdi and Maceo. I had a lot of fun, and I got really lucky to get that part, because for me, I felt naturally that I could make them interact with each other, and trying to show this love growing through my arc. And at the end of the arc, when they kiss, I think it was the last part, the splash page was great to draw. For me, it was a nice finish for my arc.
Nick, what was your favorite part?
Just I think when I like was sure I was hitting the beats, I'm thinking of like one scene where Mezzy had to bury her rats and she's crying and you know she's just screaming and Maceo kind of feels bad and helps. Like that was one, it worked. And I think the end, like I really was like, I gotta nail this ending and how they're kind of walking through the fields and like just focusing on the figure drawing and the characters and just delivering on the emotion. I think is was felt really good when I did it. You know, I won't tell you the times I don't think I did it, which are quite a few, but yeah, I mean, all of it. It was a lot of fun. It was, and just, it kind of sucks because you do 5 issues and you really get to know these characters where you're like at the height of your powers with them, and then they're gone. So, you know, it's bittersweet, but yeah, I enjoyed all of it for sure. Yeah, and the violence. It's always fun to draw Jason Aaron violence. It's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, like I said before, my favorite personal 2 pages were the portraits of each other when they finally started seeing each other differently, and it just comes after this really heartbreaking emotional degradation and lack of trust between the two of them because of external factors. And I feel like most, if not all of us here, have probably felt the deterioration of a relationship. And I just feel like Jason wrote that really accurately and symbolically in these pages. And that was kind of like the climax of that arc to me. Yeah, Jason, did you have a favorite part of writing this whole series?
Um, I don't know if I can pick a favorite part of writing it. I mean, like I said, the whole experience was really challenging, you know, in good ways. But I mean, I can tell you some of my favorite stuff that y'all drew. For Alex, I mean, I loved just the Alex's version of the kids were spot on and defined so much of everything to come. And I love that, you know, it definitely had that Wes Anderson feel. It felt like a bit like a fairy tale, even though it's in this horrible, you know, trash strewn post apocalyptic landscape. But one of my favorite things was when we flash back to the Wasteland Rangers, the weird Boy Scouts that Mezzy was a part of, and Alex did this like cutaway, like diagram of their fort, where you see all the different things going on in their fort. That was one of my favorite things, and the you know, there's a moment kind of in each of the arcs where the characters see each other, and it, like, you know, see each other, and they're kind of struck by that moment. And you know, the Alex did that first version that sort of looks like action figure packaging, you know, where we just see the character and then all their different accessories. From Leila, I think, like I said, one of the things I love most about that arc is how it's changes dramatically over the course of the story, right? Like, in one of the first, I think your Leila's first issue, we get that first one of those moments where we see these two adult characters who just literally melt into each other physically, right? And that they're just flesh melted, swirling together. And Tamara did beautiful colors on that. And that was a moment that we would come back to many times, you know, and even tried to get a version of that for Nick, just with blood.
I couldn't do
Very
it.
different kind of
It was
version.
very difficult. Yeah, Leila, you nailed that image.
Oh.
It was recalled quite a bit in my scripts, and I'd always be like, I can't figure this out. But
Oh, no.
you did it so beautifully. You really did that well. I know exactly what Jason's talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved every version of that along the way, but that first page, the first time Leila did that especially, is like spot on, perfect. And to me, you can feel that, right? Like, it's not just this pretty surreal image. You can feel, I think if you've ever felt that feeling, you know exactly, you can feel the power of that image. And then yeah, like Leila said, then the story changes and goes to some dark, surreal places, and there's the issue where we sort of chart how that relationship falls apart in small ways, right? Like, in sometimes it's a look, or it's an interpretation of something someone said, or so that's all just meant to try to capture the experience of, you know, being there in a relationship when it's fallen apart, where it does feel like this surreal horror story and almost like an out of body experience. And it's only later, you know, like when we get to Nick's part of the story, that you can look back and say, why did that happen? What was going on? Because when you're in the middle of it, you can't really process that. It's just horror. So I think Leila did an amazing job of nailing that. And yeah, those two splash pages of the monstrous faces are two of my favorite things from the whole book too. And then Nick, I think my favorite thing is the ending, is the those last few, an epilogue coming up in the last issue, which, you know, won't say too much about. But what I mean, what you did there even, you know, surprised me, and I wrote it. I knew what was coming, and I still felt, I don't know, I was more affected by it than I thought I would, seeing it for the first time. So I think, I won't say specific images or anything, but just that entire epilogue, I think was my favorite.
I love that. Well, I think we're already reaching like the 30-minute mark. Do you guys have any questions you'd like to pose to the group?
Oh, yeah, yes, I wanted to say that when I discovered your arts and Nick's art, I was so amazed, because I thought, what would look like the following arcs? And when I saw your drawings, because in your drawings there's a innate sense of sensuality, and I thought, wow, it fits for this arc. And I thought, well, yes, that was the right person to take this arc. And for Nick, this in-your-face drawing that jumps out of the page. When I saw that in my comics at the end of I thought, wow, with that kind of style, it's amazing. Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was wondering how you would feel about two other artists taking your pre-established characters. Yeah, I also had the same reaction to Nick's character designs too. Kind of after what I did, I was only thrilled. It was so cool to see what he did. So I'm glad that we didn't let you down, Alex.
I think I told Sierra and Jason that you did a great job, and I couldn't have done, because I tried to imagine myself what I would have done if I had to take care of the other arc, and no, I couldn't imagine myself doing that. And you did such a good job that it's not possible to do something better.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Aw. Anyone else want to say or ask any other questions or say anything?
Well, I think we could give a shout out to another shout out to Sierra and Daphne and Caroline at Boom, because it's easy for me to like come in and say, hey, I want to do this story of 30-page issues, you know, 3 arcs, and let's use 3 entirely different art teams, right? Like different artists, different colorists for each arc. And not only is, you know, they're going to do the bulk of those arcs, but at times we're going to weave those together. So especially these last few issues, you know, every one of you are drawing pages. And sometimes those pages connected in ways. So it's easy for me to write that in a script, but then somebody's got to manage all that. I mean, one, I'm grateful for y'all for being so up for that, doing something that's you know, I've never been a part of in quite this way. So for one, for all of you killing it, but being so open to working together in that way, but also everybody at Boom for managing all that and figuring it out, which I'm sure was a headache at times.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to our editors. The editorial team has been amazing. I've loved working with Boom and Daphne and Caroline and Sierra before she moved over to Oni. And then also like Terma Bonvillain did such a great job with colors on my artwork. I just feel like she elevated my stuff to this impossible level. I just love what she did. And then also World, as always, did such an amazing job on letters. They have lettered a couple of my other comics, most notably Sleepless, which is actually kickstarting right now. I'll have a link down below for that. But yeah, Nick and Alex, will you give shout outs to your colorist and letterer pairings as well?
Yeah, Rico Renzi colored my arc, and he did a great job. I love the fact that I don't believe there's any white pages. Like all our pages are yellow, which I think was a choice to like even the comic looks older, our pages. And just, you know, Rico's got a voice of his own, and a Rico book is a Rico book. So I was like, this at the Apocalypse, Rico would be perfect to do his thing. And yeah, I think it worked out really well. And yeah, the lettering was fantastic too. So good call out there, Leila.
Yeah, for me, I was really amazed by the color, because it fit my art with a simplistic, not simplistic, but I would say synthesized feel. So and the nuances were great, and each time it was a new atmosphere with a great color choices. So I was really happy with the colors.
Yeah, and that Lee Louridge?
Yes, Lilu Loveridge.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing work. All right, well, I think we need to wrap this up, but before we do, let's go around and tell everyone what we are working on currently and can look forward to. Alex, do you want to go first?
Yes, so I'm currently working on a 40 pages comics with Pornsak Pichachiote, the writer that I worked with and that became a friend. I worked with on The Good Adrian. After that, I'm working on a graphic novel that I wrote, and my editor is Sierra Ann.
That is so great. Is it going to be published by Oni as well?
Yes.
Delightful. Can you give us the premise or let us know any more about it?
Oh, it's a story of 2 brothers traveling in Asia.
Delightful. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Jason, what are you working on?
I am doing DC stuff for the first time. So I've got a Batman book, Batman Offworld, coming out right now. Just did some issues of Action Comics. I've got an Uncle Scrooge one shot coming up. Doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and some other stuff I can't talk about yet. I'll also be working with Sierra again. I'm doing a story for their Oni's new EC titles, bringing back EC.
Wow, cool. I didn't know they were doing that. That's awesome. Very cool. Nick, what do you have going on?
I'm not allowed to say. I think it's going to be announced at San Diego, so it's still a ways away, but doing a bunch of like I'm actually thumbnailing stuff now for it, but commissions and that. So I'm kind of chilling right now. It's good. Good place to be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Didn't you write a short, or you drew something with David Brothers recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, all last year, I feel like me and David, we did a the short box comic fair. We did a 20-page story that David wrote, and we did backups in Newburn that David wrote. So I mean, yeah, that was before once I finished all that stuff up. So yeah, did a lot of stuff with David Brothers last year. It was a lot of fun too.
Nice. Lastly, I am running a Kickstarter for Sleepless, the romance fantasy comic that me and Sarah Vaughn did over at Image Comics. We want to compile both of the volumes into one hardcover. So that's currently what's taking up most of my time. And then when I have other creative time, I am working on the sequel, or sorry, the next story in the Afar series that I am going to be drawing and writing, lettering, and coloring all on my own. So that's definitely going to be a huge undertaking, but I'm really excited because it's a really fun story. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining me and my colleagues here on this for this video. Like, I had a blast on this series, and I can't thank you guys enough for being such an amazing team. Oh my
Thank
gosh.
all you guys. This was all worked out so much better than I could have ever imagined. So thanks for everything you did. Thanks for putting this together, Leila.
Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Helioscope YouTube channel, where me and my teammates talked about our series Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. I really love the series. I loved working on it, and I hope you love reading it. Thank you so much, and have a great day.